Hello chaps and chapettes. Today's video comes in two parts. Part Alpha. So I was having a conversation with a few people on Twitter this morning about whether or not it's still relevant to teach Shakespeare to school children. And given what you know about me, you'll, I'm sure, be surprised to know that yes, I actually do think Shakespeare is relevant. But there is a problem, which is this. The way Shakespeare is taught in many schools, I think, puts people off, often for life. When we are taught Shakespeare at school, generally we're learning it as part of English, and that means that we'll be studying a certain play of his, which we'll do an in-depth analysis of, and study in great detail. Now, the problem with this is that all the time, you've kind of got this 500 years of history on your back of people telling you, this is good, this is culture, culture is good, this is good, this is objectively fine art. And I think that's a problem because we're teaching Shakespeare in the air that it is a great and brilliant thing in and of itself, which it isn't. The genius of Shakespeare comes in that people still, after 500 years, have a very emotional human connection to it, which is why I think his plays are still so widely performed. The problem is people seem to think that you can teach Shakespeare in the same way that you can teach science or maths or even grammar. Like, there are certain rules, and the rules are that Shakespeare is good. Not much allowance is made for people who actually kind of get a human connection to it a lot of the time. I've seen this even in adults when I've been to amateur dramatic productions of Shakespeare. They smile and clap and laugh along at the bits they're meant to laugh along at, but you kind of get the feeling that a lot of them are going along merely because they feel it's the sort of thing they ought to be doing, or the sort of show that they ought to be seeing, rather than because they actually necessarily like it. It's kind of part of that attitude of, oh yes, darling, we're going to the theatre tonight, we're being culturally relevant, yes, 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 which I hate. Even if you leave aside all of his cultural impact, he's still relevant from the point of view of teaching English, because so much of our common vernacular is still directly attributed to him. Mr. I can't think of a word for this, so I'll make the bastard up. No one will notice. Language pedants take note. I mean, his influence ranges from the abstract, a leopard changing its spots, to the very personal sometimes. Like, for example, if your name happens to be Imogen, then it is probably quite likely directly attributable to Shakespeare that your name even exists because he misinterpreted the earlier name Inogen. I mean, two N's kind of look similar if they're written side by side to each other. That's a thought. Maybe Shakespeare was dyslexic. Tangent. Sorry. But I think in summary, the problem with teaching Shakespeare so often is that people aren't allowed to engage emotionally with these stories that have resonated for hundreds of years. Instead, they're presented with this monolithic pillar of English literature that seems just so completely alien and unassailable that they just turn off. Also, just as a side note, I don't know if previous generations had to deal with this, but I feel that one of the biggest challenges that my generation face is that we're living in a world where doing nothing has very little consequences. So it often seems like a very attractive option. Part B. My printer died recently, and in replacing it we have been reminded that of all the items in the computing kingdom, the printer is by far and away the massive Prima-Donna. Okay, and I'm just going to print this little thing out here. Are you actually going to print anything? Shut up, I'm warming up. Wait a minute, I can't even see the computer. I can't work like this. Oh really? Well, the computer saw you 5 minutes ago when I pressed the print button. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, usually people at least tell me if they wanted an A4 paper or A5 or toilet paper or what. Oh look, I went through all of the print setup. I even reinitialized the network for you. Well, it's not good enough anyway, I'm running out of ink. No, you're not. Your manufacturer just wants me to think that you are, so I'll go out and buy more print cartridges at 35 quid a pop. Anyway, there isn't any cyan in what I want to print. Oh, well, if you're just going to stand there and belittle me again, I'm just going to turn off. Has anyone else had a similar experience with printers? Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Oh, and if you saw my last upload on this channel, you know that I've entered an audiobook contest. I found out today, made it into the top 2, and that's now down to popular vote. I'm going to leave a link to the video below. I'm not telling you to vote for me. I am not telling you to vote for me. If, however, you feel moved to do so, feel free. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Don't forget to be awesome.